Into the big hit. It's time to talk a little IUP football here in the Crimson Huddle, and we've got a great crew to do that as always here from the Crimson Hawk Sports Network. Joining us, made his broadcasting debut on Saturday, and he's here to discuss the game. Today, it's Dakota London, and in the middle, it's the man behind the scenes in 90.1, the board operator, Malusi Kitchen. Guys, let's talk some IUP football here as the Crimson Hawks return home for a homecoming matinee showdown against the Seton Hill Griffins. An absolutely wild game, wouldn't you say? 51-28 was the final score. Let's get your thoughts on that real quick.
Well, the game was certainly exciting. The score makes it seem like it's a blowout, but for anyone that saw it, it was a lot closer than you would assume. And going into the fourth quarter, the score was 30-28. But let's just talk about some of the record-breaking performances. They had Darren Bradley ties the record for most rushing touchdowns with 4. You have Walt Pegues, he sets the record for longest return touchdown with 96 yards, breaking Barry Buffner's 45-year-old record. Then Brett Allman, now the all-time leader in points with 157, surpassing Craig Burgess. They had a really good, exciting game. But trust me, Seton Hill had its moments. They shot themselves in the foot a couple of times with some turnovers. They had 3 interceptions, but it was a good game.
Yeah, I would agree. IUP, I think, defensively had the toughest challenge yet for this year. The offense actually clicked. You know, you could see it was a back-and-forth type of game. No one team could really catch the momentum, especially like you said, Dakota, with those 3 interceptions that they had. It really made for an exciting game. I think most of all, the offense definitely clicked in the fourth quarter. They scored, I believe it was 24 fourth quarter points, and they just really put them on them. And that's how you want to finish a game. You know, they finished strong. You know, it's not how you start, it's how you finish, and they definitely finished strong because, like I said, it was a back-and-forth type of game, and they really showed that going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and talking with Coach Cignetti after this one, he certainly said with no hesitation this was the wildest game he has ever been a part of as the head coach of the IUP Crimson Hawks, and that's very interesting considering some of the wild finishes that have happened here at IUP over the years. But as we said, this game was not as close as the final score indicates. 51-28, IUP really dominated in the fourth quarter, but the Crimson Hawks defense was picked apart by that dink and dunk passing attack of Seton Hill. Are there any concerns moving forward with this IUP Crimson Hawks defense?
Well, certainly there are some very strong concerns. For instance, throughout the game, they lost 4 starters at one point. One of those being Aquino Robertson, who plays a key factor in the secondary. They really struggled against the quick passing game. Quarterback Drew Jackson for Seton Hill, he had 300 yards in the first half. Now, he went 44 for 71 with 440 yards, which shattered every record that for opponents that ever play IUP. Now, 4 different players had more than 60 yards receiving, including F.J. Williams, who's the Seton Hill star receiver, and Jarvis McClain, who had a combined 24 catches for 208 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's not okay. Now, everyone knew going into this game that Seton Hill's receivers were going to cause some problems because they were all 6'3" and bigger. So it would be a good test for a secondary that really wasn't proven yet. But they really struggled against them. Now, defensively on the run, they only allowed 14 yards, but they really struggled with the pass.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they need to sharpen up their middle a little bit. They kind of let too much, space. It opened up their passing game with the running game, and I definitely think that their safeties need to do and their cornerbacks need to do a better job of covering these receivers in the coming games because they did not do a good job of covering them. They got loose a couple times, and they were for some big plays. So you don't want that to happen, especially when you get into the later part of the season when it gets to crunch time. If it's a close game like this was, you're going to have to be able to, rely on the defense if the offense can't produce like they did in the fourth quarter. But overall, I thought the defense did an amazing job. They gutted it out, and they just had they had a solid performance, I would say. I'm not going to say excellent because, there were some problems here and there, but they had a solid performance.
Yeah, and this really just goes to show what a good quarterback and a couple of tall receivers are able to do. Drew Jackson getting the ball, quick passes, Seton Hill able to gain 30 yards. They had trouble gaining that 1 yard when they really needed it. They had a couple of instances, 1st and goal from the 1, some 3rd down and 1s, 4th down and 1 kind of situations. IUP was able to stop Seton Hill in those situations. So Seton Hill a little dink and dunk, but in the end, IUP coming out with a big victory and looking ahead. This time for the schedule to turn over here. Second half of the season officially underway, and it is not a very easy portion of the schedule for IUP. They've got the California Vulcans coming up this week. California, fresh off a absolute massacre of the Slippery Rock Pride on their home field. California, with that victory now, puts all three of those teams, IUP, Slippery Rock, and Cal, in a three-way tie for first place in the PSAC West. But let's take a look at that road game. California, a team predicated on the run. IUP, a very good rushing defense. Looks like we might have a little war of attrition here.
Yeah, and it's funny because we talked about that during the commercials during the game that, you know, if Slippery Rock lost their Cal, there's a three-way tie. So Cal is the sixth-ranked scoring offense overall. And you talked about their running game, but their passing game is no joke. They average 291 yards in the pass. IUP's defense against the run has been stellar thus far, but I have strong concerns about them dealing with the pass. Now, if Cal makes a concerted effort to run the ball and it's successful, that's only going to make things worse. If they move to the pass and IUP has learned from their mistakes against Seton Hill and they're able to slow it down, they may be in good shape. But they're going to be playing at Cal. And like you said, they beat Slippery Rock with no problem at all. This is going to be certainly a very tough game.
Yeah, absolutely. And another player I think is going to be an extreme challenge for IUP is James Harris, their quarterback. He's been playing exceptional for Cal. And the fact that you mentioned, like, if they don't learn from their problems and mistakes that they had, we'll see him with some of these bigger receivers, you know, the way he can manipulate the defense. And since they're young and inexperienced, it's going to be a little tough for them to maybe read some of his calls and stuff like that to find out what the offense is going to be like. So I think they need to be on their extra P's and Q's, being able to prepare for this game, because this is going to be a tough one. It's the Cold Bowl. The winner of this game is going to take home a trophy, so this is for all the marbles right now in the season. It's an important game for them, coming off of a win that, you know, was closer than what it expected to be. But I think this is going to be a good test for IUP to see where they stand right now here in the midway point through the season.
And they've got SRU right after that game.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is going to be a tough stretch for IUP.
Absolutely.
Yeah, follow that up with a trip to Gannon as well, and a pretty hellacious slate of games for the IUP Crimson Hawks. But for Cal, you have to think the game plan is going to be very similar. Of course, they tried to stop that run for Slippery Rock, wanted Slippery Rock to throw the football with their backup quarterback in. They really loaded up the box. Cal was able to shut down the Slippery Rock rushing attack, force Slippery Rock to throw the football, and you see the result. You have to think that Cal's going to try to do the same thing. And for IUP, they're probably going to look to shut down the rushing attack as well. So it could be a first to 20 kind of game at Adamson Stadium. Kickoff Saturday at 1 o'clock. IUP winning on homecoming. They've got Cal coming up this week. That's going to do it here for the Crimson Huddle for Dakota, London, and Malusi Kitchen. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because coming up next, Kyle Condor's in studio. I'm sure he's got props, sound effects, and everything in the 2-minute drill. We'll be right back.